WSB.
Hi, Sean.
I talked to you yesterday.
Good. You are fantastic.
Thank you.
Yes. A great host. Sean is great. Listen to his show.
Absolutely, 95.5.
One mic.
Shelley Winter Show live, local, topical, and relevant, my friends, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, man, we've got a lot to talk about. Let's get right to it. So, the breaking local news. Oh, my goodness. Who saw this coming? Well, apparently Rick Jackson did. Rick Jackson, president, owner, founder of Jackson Healthcare, and hugely successful business here in Georgia, just announced this morning, dropped a campaign video that is, I got to tell you, I've been in this game a long time. I've never heard a personal story. Like, all politicians have a personal story. It's politics 101. You tell your story. Who are you, right? And you hear, I came up from this, I came up from that. I have never heard a more powerful personal story than Mr. Jackson. So I'm going to play it for you. I'm going to stop and start, throughout. But here is the first part. It's about a 2-minute long video. The second half of the video is him talking about what he's done and what he wants to do and things like that. We're just going to play the personal story.
The first time he got behind the wheel, he drove his mom home after she passed out drunk in their car at a stop.
So, first 2 seconds, 3 seconds of the video, he's telling you what his early life. His mom was a drunk. This is what he's telling you, that his mom was a drunk and he had to drive her home. So you're automatically, you sit back, huh? Who does that?
Stoplight, abandoned, abused, hungry. Growing up, they called him white trash, a worthless little bastard.
Growing up, they called him white trash, a worthless little bastard. Now you're like, who's this? Like, who says that? Who openly? When I was growing up, they called me white trash, a bastard, a little bastard. This is this man telling you his story.
But Rick Jackson survived the Techwood projects.
Anybody know Techwood? Techwood projects? A white dude? I didn't know white people lived in Techwood projects. I didn't know white people could live. I know Techwood projects as being the hood, the ghetto, projects. I didn't know white people lived there. Now, it might have been a bunch of white people lived there. I don't know. I didn't know until now that white people lived in Techwood projects. But listen to what he says after he says growing up in Techwood projects. Listen to this.
And literally fought his way out.
Literally fought his way out. You know that man fought all the time. This is just a powerful personal story told by him.
Homes later, Jackson struck out on his own, living paycheck to paycheck. Shoe shine boy, grocery bagger, paper boy, ticket scalper. At 19, he dropped out.
I want to point out to you, shining shoes, bagging groceries, normal jobs for teenagers, normal jobs for any kid, whether you got a lot of money or a little money or nothing. You're scrambling to eat every night, right? Doesn't matter, right? Those are regular jobs. He adds even in there ticket scalper. Now, that's for those of us who grew up in, not us, I shouldn't say us, I had food on the table, right? My mom, we struggled, but not like that, right? But he's telling you ticket scalper means that, hey, we did what we had to do to survive. Because back then, ticket scalping was buying a bunch of tickets or someone giving you tickets and you selling them and then you giving them a piece of it or whatever. Illegal, skirting the law, maybe. But it was what people did to survive.
Of college he couldn't afford. Started a family, got a single-wide trailer, bet on himself, and took a job in straight commission phone sales. 1 year later, Jackson started his own business and turned it into one of the most unlikely multi-billion-dollar success stories in Georgia history, winning against all odds. That's the story of Rick Jackson's life.
Techwood. Project people know what that is like. First home he bought, when he started a family, was a trailer. So trailer park people know what that's like. This guy appeals to many demographics in a minute ad with his personal story. He's not pandering. He's not telling you, oh, this is me, I come from nothing, and nothing is really a 5-bedroom house instead of a mansion, right? He's telling you, and he's appealing to several demographics, particularly in rural Georgia. And he's also appealing to the demographic of people, and we're all like this, who believe tomorrow can be better if I just work hard. Now, that may or may not be true, but in his personal story, he's telling you, I did it. It's a powerful story, and it resonates. It resonates. Now, this race now is topsy-turvy now. You had Burt Jones, MAGA, Burt Jones, versus Chris Carr, Brad Raffensperger, non-MAGA. And Burt Jones had a clear path. Chris Carr and Brad Raffensperger battling it out for that lane of the Republican primary voter, right? The moderate lane, if you will. And Burt had that MAGA lane, the surefire front runner. This guy jumps in, a Trump supporter, billionaire, funding his own campaign with a compelling personal story from poverty, foster care, to billionaire status. Now the whole race is upside down. The whole race is upside down. What a time it is to be on talk radio, I will tell you. I will also say this, my friends. I'm speculating here, okay? Purely speculating. I have no proof of what I'm going to say. No proof. I'm just speculating. I spent most of my life. I used to read Encyclopedia Brown. If you know, you know. I used to read. Encyclopedia Brown was one of my early books. Women read Nancy Drew. I read Encyclopedia Brown. And I would try and figure out the case before they gave the synopsis at the end of the story. To the point where I even started Shelley Winter Detective Service in my apartment building when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I've watched Matlock, I've watched Murder, She Wrote, I watched Columbo, I watched Law and Order, I've watched every single crime drama out there. Psych, Monk, everything. I can watch them all day, every day. And I try and figure out who did it before it gets to the end of the show. Let me tell you something. My brain that grew up with these detective stories says that Mr. Jackson was the primary funder, if not the primary driver, of the Burt Jones attack ads. Now, I've seen in the reporting that they've denied it. Maybe they have. But for the longest time, we couldn't figure out who had enough money to do this. We knew the Democrats wouldn't spend money from October all the way to now, spending money attacking Burt Jones. We knew Chris Carr, as much as it may have benefited him early on, because Brad Raffensperger hadn't jumped in a race yet, we knew he didn't have the money to spend that kind of money so early in the race. Brad Raffensperger jumped in, but the ads were running before Brad jumped in. So we know it wasn't him. Who could it be? Who could it be? I speculate. I'm just thinking out loud here. The only guy with the money and a brilliant tactical move would have been Mr. Jackson, because he has the money. He's funding his own campaign. He's a billionaire. He had the money to drop $14 million on television, softening up Burt Jones. That's a brilliant, brilliant move, because there's no campaign. So you couldn't find who's spending the money because there was no campaign. He knew he was probably going to run, but he was just throwing blows. Let me soften him up. Let me soften up the front runner. Burt Jones coming out in polling, 40%, 50%. I'll soften him up with no mention of my name. It's brilliant. Man, I got to tell you, I'm on my team. I'm Team Burt. I said that a long time ago. I'm staying there. But this is going to be a fascinating, absolutely fascinating primary campaign with this injection of Rick Jackson. And now I know many people are saying, well, I don't know who he is. Well, that's good, because he's got the money for the next February, March, April, May, 4 months to pour money into telling you who he is. And when you hear his personal story, you're hard-pressed not to be riveted by it, because it's not a personal story just of a guy. It's a personal story of a guy from abject poverty, not tossed aside by his mom, foster care, everything else, Techwood Projects, trailer park, billionaire. Boom. We'll be right back. 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB-TALK. We will be right back.